Hey guys, it's Mason, and this is Wrestling in the Dark, the only wrestling review and recap show brought to you by a blind fan, as far as I know. Welcome to the Monday edition. These shows will be where I answer questions, take a look at the subjects that I find interesting in the world of wrestling right now, and I'm just going to dive straight into it. So the first question I've got today is, what's next for the Revival? They've just lost the Raw Tag Team Championships to Ryder and Hawkins at WrestleMania. That can be perceived as being bad for them because, Ryder and Hawkins are a joke team. Hawkins is coming off the back end of that huge losing streak, and a lot of people feel like a team at the level of the Revival shouldn't be losing tag team title matches to that level of performer. So what do I think is next? It's not a hot take. It's not anything anyone else hasn't said, but I think a move to Smackdown would do them a lot of good. Just get them a completely refreshed sort of feel to them. Just get them away from Raw, get them against a new set of opponents, and just completely hit the reset button with them, because their time on Raw hasn't particularly been useful for them. So I'd move them to SmackDown. I think that you could have a really good tag division on SmackDown if you have the Revival, the Bar, New Day, and the Street Profits, as well as Nakamura and Rusev, if you wanted to keep them together. But even if not, if you call up the Street Profits just to have that extra little bit of something new to the tag title scene, I think that could be a really strong division, and they could get some really, really cool matches out of that, and Revival could definitely get a run with the titles at that point and actually put on some decent matches. And eventually the Street Profits are going to come up. You don't particularly want them around the Usos, in my opinion. So the Usos could go off to Raw, and the Revival can sort of run that division for a while, with the Street Profits being sort of the face team going up against them. That's sort of what I think would be a good next step for the Revival. Question number 2 is, speaking of the SmackDown tag division, is there a place for nostalgia act like the Hardys clogging up the scene as the tag title holders? I am not sure how I feel about this, because you can look at it at multiple ways. There's the traditional way of looking at it, that they're there and the role that they're going to play is to put over younger talent, and the younger talent will get the rub from beating them. I don't know if that works well in practice, especially not with the Hardys. They don't have the shine that they once did. The crowd isn't behind them as much as they once were. They're not doing the broken gimmicks. It's just, they're just sort of there, and they're taking the titles away from, teams that could be doing a lot more with it. It could be, again, if a team like Revival was over there, they could be tag champs, but they might be struggling against someone like the Hardys, and I'm not sure if I think that's right. But I'm not particularly sure how long they'll be tag champs for either. So I don't think that it's too bad, but I do think that they need to lay off on that sort of thing for a little bit, because it's just, there's a lot of people now, a lot more fans that have joined over the years, and I would hesitate to say that it was more so, but I think there's definitely a large section of the fan base now that probably didn't grow up watching Attitude Era stuff. There's probably quite a few fans now, like myself, that have jumped on later on, and people like me don't have that emotional connection to the Hardys, to those, to the people of that time, like It was the same thing with Kurt Angle at WrestleMania. I don't have that connection to Kurt Angle, so I really wasn't as mad about the Baron Corbin thing as some people were, because they've got a real emotional investment. So I'm sure people who grew up watching the Hardys are probably like happy that they are getting a chance again, and I'm sure it's good for casual fans tuning in and be like, oh, I know the Hardy Boyz, yeah. But other than that, I do think that hopefully it'll be a short title reign and they can put over some younger talent, and then maybe just, they've been teasing retirement for a while, so maybe just disappear off into the ether for a little bit. And that's my thoughts on the Hardys. Question 3. Should Smackdown go 3 hours when it moves to Fox in October? This has been a little bit of speculation that's been floating around for a couple of weeks now, after some financial expert told the WWE that they'd be good to add a 3rd hour to SmackDown when they move to Fox and get a little bit more money out of Fox. The idea being that it would go 2 hours on the Fox channel, and then the 3rd hour would be moved to Fox Sports 1. And I'm not sure how I feel about this, because on the one hand, all people do is complain about how long Raw is, and I'm one of them. Each week, the fact that it's 3 hours usually puts me off, because if I know there's going to be sort of there's not going to be a whole lot to offer me in that space, because it's just so long that it's hard to invest. However, I think one of the problems with Raw fatigue is knowing that you've got SmackDown the next day. So you could spread it between Tuesday and Wednesday or whatever, but you can't do that at the minute, because you've got Fox. You've got SmackDown the next day. Whereas when it moves to Fridays, when it goes to Fox, you're going to have a much larger gap between them. There's going to be a lot of stars on SmackDown Live, and I think you can only really do this if you just fold 205 Live, which I don't think people want. As much as it doesn't do that well, I think there's quite a dedicated fan base to 205 Live. It's not something that I watch every week, but I know that there are a lot of fans that do, and I can't really see a way of moving it to 3 hours and keeping 205 Live, because you'd need to bolster that roster a little bit, and at that point, if both shows were going to be 3 hours, you'd need to fold the 205 Live roster into Raw and SmackDown. I think that they could do it well. As I said, you do want to give everyone a time to shine. They are going to have big stars on there, and I'm not particularly sure it's the correct idea. I think it could work and it could be a good idea, but I'm not particularly sure if fan reception to it would be great. I'd like to see a strong British presence on the SmackDown Live roster after October. The word is that Fox wants it to look more like a sports-like show, and I think the British European style really helps create that sports-like feel, because that's what NXT UK is like. So with having the cruiserweights, you could have them on Raw, as they were originally supposed to be, the Raw exclusive talent, and have maybe the British have a British division on SmackDown. And that way you definitely could make the 3 hours work, I think, in my opinion. I hope that they don't do it. I think that they probably will, and hopefully they can make it work, because I don't want to see people completely getting turned off by SmackDown because it's suddenly got that 3rd hour, especially when they have to switch channels a third of the way through. So that's my thought on SmackDown going 3 hours. Question 4. What would I do now with Black Magic, Ricochet and Aleister Black? Obviously, I think that they will end up getting split up in the Superstar shake-up. It's sort of a shame, because I know that they're not a real tag team, but I would like to see some sort of closure to this tag team arc that they've had. I like that they started out in the Dusty Rhodes Classic. I like that. It's one of the things that I really like actually about the Dusty Road Classics is that there's always that one team that comes together that's not supposed to be a team. And it actually really worked for Black and Ricochet. I really got into their team, and I'm okay with them getting split up in the Superstar Shake-Up, but I would like to see some sort of resolution to it, even if it's... I don't know whether they're going to have the rosters in the same building the way that they did in the first draft, but I doubt it. Superstar shake-ups have just tended to be like, oh, they're here, this person's here, and etc, etc. So I'd just like to see, even if it was just a backstage segment between the two of them, of like, right, it was a nice run, but we've got to go off as single stars now. I'd like to see them both in the Money in the Bank match, actually. So I think that could be a good conclusion to that arc of the sort of... You could play it as almost they have to have a readjustment period when I would put Ricochet on SmackDown, Aleister Black on Raw, and they can almost do like a readjustment period of... I've got to get used to being a singles competitor again, and then they could sort of work as a team in the Money in the Bank match for a little while before sort of realising, as they're climbing the ladder or something like that, that it's every man for themselves and the tag team is over. And I think that would be a nice just conclusion to it, rather than they're just split up and that's it. You don't speak anymore about it, it's not remembered. It can actually be a chapter in both of their careers then that actually has a conclusion. So I think that's what I'd do with them. That's about it for that one. Question 5. Who should take the title from Johnny Gargano? This one is a fairly easy one for me to say what I want. I don't know particularly whether they'd go this direction, but I'd really like to see down the line the Velveteen Dream take the title from Johnny. When he has to go and he has to disappear off to main roster, then I'd really like to see Dream take it off him, preferably still as the NXT North American champion. I don't know why, but I have this obsession. It really is a near obsession with the Velveteen Dream being a dual champion. I think with his gimmick and that Velveteen experience thing, him having 2 belts and coming out and being NXT champ and NXT NA champ, I just think that would be really, really cool to watch. I think that would add a really good shine to Velveteen Dream and give him an accolade that hasn't been had before, and that sets him apart from the people that have come before him when he hasn't necessarily had as many special moments as other people. I think that's where I would go with it. Other good contenders would be I think Pete Dunne could be a good contender. I don't know whether they'd want to do that because he's just had the NXT UK Championship for so long. I know a lot of people think that he's going to be on main after the Superstar shake-up tonight and tomorrow, but I don't think that I'd like to see that yet. I don't think enough people know who Pete Dunne is. I think you just give him a little bit of time, even just, one takeover cycle, maybe just after SummerSlam, possibly. Just a match with Johnny Gargano and Pete Dunne, I think, would be a really good match. In the end, I think Johnny would win, but Pete would be a good contender, and it'd make him look good, and I think it would probably elevate the NXT belt too, because he had such a strong run with the NXT UK one. I know most people probably think that it'll be Adam Cole. I'm not sure with Adam Cole. I think that he might end up going to the main roster without an NXT title run. I really do. I don't know why. I've just got a feeling about it. I think that Pete Dunne would really benefit from being in that title scene. But like I said, I'd really like to see the Velveteen Dream take it in the end. And I after the Riddle Dream feud. I'd quite like to see that carry on a little bit. It'd be pretty cool if Matt Riddle had a match against Johnny Gargano at some point, he loses, and then the Dream has a match with Gargano later down the line, and when he wins, Riddle can come out and attack him, and they can reopen that feud, and then Riddle versus Dream would have 2 titles on the line, and that would be, I don't know why, I really captivated by the dichotomy of those 2 characters in that feud, and I'd like to see it continue. So yeah, that's who I think should take the title off Johnny Gargano. It should be the Velveteen Dream. Question 6, our final topic of the day. Who should win Money in the Bank? Now, I've got a couple of picks for this that I like. 2 for the women, 1 for the men. I really think it's time to let Sami Zayn have a little bit of shine to him. Now, this allow me to indulge myself and fantasy book a little bit here. I would really like to see Sami Zayn with this new heel character. I'd like to see him win Money in the Bank and almost be a black cloud over Kofi's head, threatening to mess up Kofi's run, just to spite the fans for being, for being stupid and just, all the things that Sami is criticising them for. I just think it'd be really cool if it had more to do with him trying to spite the fans than Kofi. And I also think that since Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are always sort of going to be linked anyway, I'd quite like to see Owens sort of in the background of that feud trying to turn Zayn face again, because I think it would be quite a fleshed out character arc for Owens to try and bring Sami back round to the light side after he is the one that created the original Sami Zayn monster when he turned heel. That is the makings of Kevin Owens, and I'd really like to see Owens trying to get him back to being a good guy, because he knows the monster that he's created. And I think it'd be nice symmetry as well, because you have Owens when he first came back almost being used against Kofi by Vince, and there was that possibility of him ruining Kofi's chance, and I think that would be a really nice symmetry with Zayn also having the opportunity to ruin Kofi's chances. So that's who I think should win the men's Money in the Bank. If not Sami Zayn, I think it's a really hard decision, because you don't want to give it to people. Don't tend to like faces as Money in the Bank holders, but I think there'd be something special about Ricochet if he had the Money in the Bank briefcase. I don't know why. I just think it'd be his thing could just be, I've got this thing that I can cash in at any time and just put on like a 5-star match, or however he'd want to say it. I think that'd be cool. Just, I've got this, and whenever I cash it in, it's going to be the match of the night. I think that would be a cool gimmick. As for the women, I think Nikki Cross would be a good choice. She's been up on the main roster for quite a while and she hasn't been used at all, really. She has had no TV time, and I think that she's a very talented performer. I really like the Nikki Cross character. I saw an interview, a fantastic interview by Gorilla Position with her earlier this week, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed her as a person, so I'd like to see her get an opportunity, and it'd be a good way of perhaps utilising Sanity at some point. Just that'd be a decent way to go. But I also have there's another obsession that I have, that I think at some point they need to debut an NXT person in a Money in the Bank match and have them win it. And who better than Shayna Bazler? She's had all the competition that she's had in NXT. She's still the NXT champion. You can bring her up into the Money in the Bank match as the NXT Women's Champion. She can win Money in the Bank, and she could pull a little bit of double duty, like what Ricochet and Aleister Black were doing. She could even take the briefcase back down to NXT, so when she loses the title, she's just got the briefcase anyway. And I think I'd really like that. I don't know why. I just think it would really suit Shayna's character. This dominant force that comes into the Money in the Bank match as a champion. Like, now I have the right to be in this match because I am the most prestigious champion. Like, that's what she would think. So she would see it as having just an automatic. That she would deserve to be in that match, and I think that it would work really well. So Nikki Cross or Shayna Bazler would be my picks for the women's Money in the Bank holders, and Sami Zayn or Ricochet for the men's. So these were just some of my thoughts on the interesting topics going on in wrestling right now. What would you think of any of these questions? I would love to know. So leave a comment down below and let's get a discussion started. If you've got any questions, feel free to submit them in the comment section on any of my videos over the next week, and when next Monday rolls around, I might answer a few of your questions. Seriously, let's get a discussion started. Let's be friends. If you want to stay up to date with my videos, hit subscribe, hit that notify bell, and you will never miss an episode of Wrestling in the Dark. Right, guys, I'm off, and you should have a good one.